Chance the Rapper, Acid Rap.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Chance the Rapper mixtape, Acid Rap. Chance the Rapper is a Chicago rapper and singer, and this is his follow-up project to the 10-day mixtape that dropped last year, which you could definitely say is kind of overlooked considering just how much speed, hype, popularity that Chance is gaining off this new project. And if you compare Acid Rap to 10-day, you can definitely see an uptick in quality, or at least memorability, because there are less moments on 10-day that seem to feature that very quirky, nutty, over-the-top personality that people seem to be celebrating on this new project. Plus, the production on this new project is flashier, the recording quality is better too. Now, as far as the personality that Chance brings on this mixtape, it seems to be much of what his focus lies in. Chance is personality. His voice that he delivers his raps and his singing with is done in this sort of high mid-pitch register, and there's a sharp rasp in a lot of his vocals too. And he comes off incredibly energetic for somebody whose head seems to be very riddled with drugs. Acid, Xanax, weed, and alcohol seem to be major players in a lot of Chance's lyrics, with Molly and wax as well as many other things kind of hopping in to play cameo roles. In fact, the song Push a Man kind of paints this drug dealer image of him in the hook of the song anyway, with very smooth, jazzy production, and the song is peppered with his nya 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 ad-lib that he likes to throw around everywhere. When rapping, Chance paces his words out in this Rastafari style flow, and the hook on this track is sort of backed up with some chopped and screwed vocals. It's a killer hook. There's actually a bit of space as soon as this first portion of the song finishes, and then it leads into a second portion. And I mean, it's a big gap of literally silence, which according to Twitter, Chance says that if you're on acid while listening to this project, don't skip it, because it takes away all the feeling. But while listening to this, I was pretty sober, so I'm not sure if I should skip it or sit through it. Either way, the track breaks into this very spacey, lush, synth-heavy beat that feels very nocturnal and has a huge Good Kid, Mad City kind of vibe to it. And when Chance finally pops into the track, his flow gives off the same feel. And on this latter portion of the track, which is very quiet, very subtle, Chance paints himself as this guy with a blunt on his lips, he's got his 9 on his hip, and it's got the shits. At this point in the song, Chance comes off very druggy, very violent, but then he sort of turns around and wonders why the media doesn't really cover the extreme gang violence that goes on in Chicago. It feels like to me that Chance has a love-hate relationship with where he comes from and violence as well. While he sees Chicago as a place that has personality and has built him as a person, he hates the violence that goes on there. And while he does seem to fear it in a very serious and real way, he does use it occasionally to sort of further his persona. Maybe just sort of throwing some tough talk out there in order to counteract some of the more vulnerable and personal moments that are spread throughout this tape. Musically, he even celebrates Chicago a little bit with some JUKE influence on the beats from the opening track and the closing track on here too, which I loved. Still, on this track and maybe a few other moments on this tape, Chance is taking some really important social issues in his lyrics, setting them up against a great instrumental, but the urgency of these issues to me doesn't really come through all the time. Chance may have some strong personal feelings about some of the stuff he brings up, but he doesn't come off to me as like a serious voice on some of these topics. Usually when he tries to take on a tangled and difficult issue like drug addiction or violence or one's relation with God, it comes off very surface and just barely scratched. I feel like I'm just left with some messages and some images sometimes that are thickly glazed over with a layer of inebriation. There are moments on Acid Rap though where Chance's very personal relationship with drugs does seem to help him out and lead to some real song inspiration, like on the track Cocoa Butter Kisses. Not only is the instrumental killer on this thing really smooth, great organs on this track, fantastic melody, very memorable, really tasteful hook, soulful singing coming from Chance, and I love the sentiment of this track, basically talking about how when you smoke a lot, whether it be cigarettes, whether it be pot, you have your life, especially your relationships with people who aren't in on that part of your life, kind of change because the smell is there. People who you have a relationship might have strong feelings against you smoking. It's a part of smoking that is really real, but it's an element of this life that isn't really explored through song all too often because there's nothing glorious about it. It's kind of awkward, and Chance does a great job of capturing this awkwardness on a track with a guest verse from Twista that is absolutely awesome. As acid rap continues, Chance comes through and exposes his more tender side, which I'm sure a lot of you saw coming. He delivers a pretty interesting love song with the track Lost, which makes the idea of dropping acid with someone sound really romantic. The track has some beautiful piano-led production, awesome jazzy flute and guitar on this thing. Lyrically, Chance delves a little bit into the specifics of the relationship that he has with this girl. And though the track does have a really sweet sentiment to it, there is a bit of speculation left in the verse dropped by No Name Gypsy, which is a great verse, where we are left off with the line where she says the only time he really loves her is naked in her dreams, sort of illustrating some kind of disconnect between the two of them when maybe they're not high. The album gets even better on the next two tracks with the track Everybody's Something, which is a really fantastic sentiment on this album, just talking about everybody is somebody's everything. That's essentially the message of the song. It's talking about relationships, whether they be family or romantic. And though Chance's rhymes come off angry sometimes on this track, he goes on to say that he is who he is because someone loved him to help him beat his demons and basically get him through harder times. There's a funny spot toward the end of the track where he goes on and on about how he talks white, or just sort of has this white inflection to the way that he converses in everyday life. And sort of an underlying subtlety to this point in the track is that he uses a flow that feels completely ripped from Eminem's Slim Shady LP. Chance has some great wordplay toward the back end of this track, and the way he sings on this song is just another reminder that he has a very strange voice, but can definitely sing. I love the song That's Love. I feel like it's a great middle point on this album, another passionate spot on here, but for me the LP really loses steam after this moment. Acid Rap continues with three pretty major features from Childish Gambino, Action Bronson, and Ab-Soul on the next three tracks, but I really feel like these songs are some of the most lackluster on the album. And it really has nothing to do with the features whatsoever. I feel like on these particular tracks, the production is the weakest. A lot of Chance's hooks on these songs are the most forgettable and half-assed, and I don't really feel like there's a strong message or sentiment to any of the tracks either. They just feel like really breezy moments. The track Favorite Song is really poppy, it has a sweet instrumental, but the moment where Chance flies in with the "that's my jam, that's my jam, that's my jam, that's my jam," it just feels like he's not even trying. The song Nyanya comes through with that Rastafari flow again. I like the heavy bass line on this track, and Action Bronson delivers a fantastically just over-the-top and funny verse on this song, but Chance essentially makes a hook out of his somewhat obnoxious ad-lib that I feel like he peppers way too hard on the album anyway. And Smoke Again, maybe this track is my least favorite of the three. The beat, to me, doesn't really feel like anything but a trap beat with the hi-hat stripped out of it. Chance's lyrics don't really hit me in any way whatsoever. No surprises, nothing really all that interesting. And Ab-Soul on this track may have dropped one of his most lackluster guest verses that I've ever heard, especially with the line where he says, "No doubt like Gwen Stefani's group, let me put my mouth where you potty boo." After these moments, the album returns back to that production that feels very refined. It's melodic, it's chill, it's sweet on the ears. But on the track Acid Rain, though Chance is getting really nostalgic in his lyrics, it just feels like there are too many moments on this track where he's grasping for something to struggle over personally. And the closer was really the best thing the end of this album had to offer. Overall, I didn't really dislike this mixtape. I thought it was really likable, and I liked the personality that Chance brought to the table, and a lot of the hooks on the first half of this LP. For sure, there is reason to celebrate Chance's growing popularity because he is certainly different than your average ignorant trap rapper. But with a lot of the things that he says in his lyrics, I don't really feel like he's a breath of fresh air or anything like that, because lyrically he doesn't really come off as enlightened or as progressive as one would assume just by listening to his out there persona. I guess there are just a lot of moments where he lets hooks, beats, and his ad-libs carry his songs from beginning to end. There are these spots on this album where he feels like nothing more than a goofy, acid-dropping cartoon character who is way too jittery and unfocused to drop some lines that would really sort of widen some eyes and surprise some people when it comes to some of the serious topics that he attempts to tackle on some of these tracks. Overall, I'm feeling a decent to strong 6 on this tape. If you've given it a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Chance the Rapper, forever.